Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, I'm not used to speaking to a crowd this large. Normally, classrooms here and there, and normally it's pretty interactive. This way, I guess I have to prepare more material, so I'll get started. So Bitcoin, the gateway virtual currency. That's me. Now, some of you will disagree with what I have to say, but that's why we have conferences like this one. Now, thanks to SERENE-RISC and Drs. Clark and Nicaria too, we've been provided a venue for the interaction of so many different viewpoints. And if we're lucky, we might learn something from each other and develop an appreciation for an aspect of cybersecurity that we never had before. Is Bitcoin a gateway virtual currency? Will using Bitcoin lead to more sinister or otherwise naughty behavior online? Downloading the latest season of Game of Thrones before it's released? Accessing American Netflix via VPN, perusing the darknet markets on the dark web in an attempt to self-medicate? Well, it depends on who you ask, but there seems to be 4 prevailing groups of Bitcoin users: technology enthusiasts, libertarians, speculators, and criminals. I'll be focusing on law enforcement's experiences with the most dangerous of the groups, the libertarians. No, just kidding. Please, no hate mail. I suppose we should start somewhere near the beginning. Virtual currencies have been around since the mid-1990s. And if we use e-gold as an example, virtual currencies have been used to facilitate and launder the funds obtained through criminal activities from the get-go. So e-gold was centralized, and this resulted in important losses to both the clients, criminal and not, and e-gold themselves, when U.S. authorities indicted e-gold for laundering funds, as well as various money transmission offenses. So U.S. authorities forced them to freeze, liquidate, and turn over the operating e-gold accounts to the government. The next prevalent virtual currency that deserves mention is, was, Liberty Reserve, who attempted to distance themselves from potential money laundering charges and limit their ability, with their liability, by providing their virtual currency services through third-party brokers or exchangers. Now, in 2013, Liberty Reserve, as well as 35 exchangers, were indicted for laundering approximately $6 billion US, and US authorities managed to restrain $25 million in criminal proceeds from the investigation's targets. During this time, other centralized virtual currencies, including prepaid card systems and token systems, flourished, but most had an issue with centralization, as well as banking laws that came into effect in the United States that placed virtual currency brokers and administrators in the same category as other money service businesses for the first time. These new laws forced new licensing obligations, as well as, and most importantly, the obligation to know your client. This meant that everyone moving money on your network would have to be properly identified and records kept, which pretty much eliminated any anonymity provided by moving funds outside of the traditional banking system. Now, at the very, very beginning of the conference, there was a slide showing Bitcoin, and there was a sharp rise in 2012-13. That is most likely due to the fall of Liberty Reserve, which fell in 2012-13. So, in comes Bitcoin, which honestly had been around for some time, but had remained fringe due to rather wild fluctuations in value. Bitcoin was decentralized, cost-effective, relatively easy to use, and reputed to be anonymous, particularly when used in combination with the dark web. Bitcoin quickly filled the market space left vacant by Liberty Reserve and became law enforcement's great white whale. Questions raced through our sleuthing minds, like, who is the target of the indictment this time? Where or who do we seize the money from? Is it even money? If we buy in now, could we retire early? Once again, kidding. These are all questions that we had to figure out the answers to, but we recognized at this point that technology, including virtual currencies, would continue to evolve, and the criminal element would be the first to exploit technology for gain, because they're aware that it takes time for law enforcement to develop the expertise necessary to investigate new ways of committing these same old crimes, and any advantage for any period of time would normally prove to be pretty valuable. So why would anybody have to hide their identity while conducting a financial transaction? What do they have to hide? It's relatively easy for some to qualify Bitcoin as inherently evil, particularly in North America and Europe, where the banking systems and governments are stable, and an alternative method to move money is not necessary. As we all know, there are places in the world where sending money abroad to loved ones is rather complicated, or where the banking system is unstable or quite simply cannot be trusted. The average person would have likely only heard of Bitcoin in the media associated with criminal behavior. This, combined with the shroud of mystery in which Bitcoin resides, intentionally created or not, has led some to fear Bitcoin. So fear of the unknown would describe much of law enforcement's relationship with Bitcoin. We hear that Bitcoin is an anonymous cryptocurrency, scary word, and immediately you think, why, and what is this person trying to hide? The original objective of Bitcoin was to put a system in place where the public can see that someone is sending an amount to someone else, but without linking the transaction to anyone. Not so scary. Particularly if we think of Bitcoin like cold, hard cash, fiat money. Once cash has left the banking system, it can travel and be used to pay for almost anything without leaving a trace. This can mean potential problems when investigating any number of infractions, unless, of course, you're one of the individuals conducting the transaction. Bitcoin, on the other hand, mixes transparency and privacy, providing pseudonymity. All Bitcoin transactions can be viewed and confirmed via the blockchain. This is important and advantageous to law enforcement, as transactions conducted within the traditional banking system cannot be accessed without first obtaining some form of legal process. The situation is made that much more complicated when an investigation is international in nature and evidence is required to support a transaction that has been conducted outside of Canadian jurisdiction. Bitcoin facilitates the movement of funds across borders, but it also facilitates the tracking of the transactions. Yes, the individuals behind the transactions may be difficult to identify, but then hey, easy is boring. Now, where are we in law enforcement seeing Bitcoin? Well, if we go by sheer numbers alone, ransomware. Ransomware exploded and increased about 600% in 2016, and credible sources estimate the losses to amount to $1 billion. Don't ask me how that's calculated, but I'll let that sink in for a moment. That's why 2016 was the year of ransomware. In case not everyone is aware of what ransomware is, I'll explain it briefly. Traditionally, ransomware is a malicious software program that encrypts entire hard drive content or specific files and folders of a computer that is downloaded or otherwise been infected with it. The usual infection is a result of a victim clicking on to an email attachment of some sort. Once infected, the victim's computer displays a message explaining what has happened and requesting funds be paid, primarily in virtual currency. To the criminals, to the criminals in exchange for the key to unlock the encrypted computer. Why are they using Bitcoin? We return to the belief that Bitcoin is anonymous. Bitcoin is easy to obtain and use compared to virtual currencies, to other virtual currencies. The criminal element maintains a level of anonymity, and funds can be quickly moved across borders and or converted to cold hard cash quickly and easily. And let's be honest, it's hard to make it rain Bitcoin in the club. So the bottom shot there, I'm hoping that's a screenshot that you never see, because that's what it looks like when your computer is locked up. Okay. Of course, Bitcoin is a major currency in traditional cybercrimes, and the organizations that commit them tend to operate in a very decentralized manner themselves. An example of this would be a South American hacker who administrates and leverages a botnet to send out fraudulent phishing spam on behalf of a European criminal organization. The European criminal organization will then use the information or credentials harvested from the victims to compromise bank accounts or otherwise illegally obtain funds. Now, what are they going to do with all this money? Well, they have to launder it. More spam goes out, particularly to North America, recruiting money mules who want to make money from home. These money mules are hired to receive money transfers to their personal bank accounts, convert the funds to Bitcoin, and transfer those funds back to the European criminal organization. Difficult to investigate because it's not likely that any of the conspirators have actually met or even know each other's true identities. We, of course, cannot overlook the use of Bitcoin in dark markets. Vendors are able to display their goods on the popular markets that may be found using the Onionland router software. Think of it like Amazon.dark. The Onionland router network, or Tor, conceals the user's location and usage from anyone conducting network surveillance or traffic analysis. Using Tor makes it more difficult for internet activity to be traced back to the user. This includes visits to websites, online posts, instant messages, and other communication forms. Traditionally, payments for illegal goods, services, contraband, or child pornography in the marketplaces that have been made via Bitcoin dating back to the famous or the infamous Silk Road market. Bitcoin has been very popular on dark markets, not only because it provides a certain level of anonymity for vendors and clients, but also different types of transactions can be easily arranged that require the approval of more than 2 parties before a non-reversible transaction can be conducted. As expected, transactions conducted on the dark markets have evolved and now can be conducted using other cryptocurrencies, which ostensibly provide more anonymity, but it'll take time to dethrone the king, Bitcoin. In the eyes of law enforcement, what risks are potentially posed by Bitcoin and other virtual currencies? Well, there are techniques that may render Bitcoin transactions virtually untraceable, whereas other cryptocurrencies are built to provide anonymity and their ledger is not publicly searchable or easily accessible to law enforcement, rendering those transactions conducted by the criminal element difficult to monitor. Which I guess brings us full circle back to the same issues we face and have always faced with good, hard cash. Bitcoin blockchain has forced the evolution of laws, regulations, financial systems, and law enforcement, making it a movement that may evolve but will not likely disappear. In the coming years, law enforcement will have to become familiar and even comfortable with the technology that in the end is very similar to cash. Following the above logic, increasing the efficiency of law enforcement investigators is likely to result in the following developments for criminal transactions. So we're likely to see an increase of Bitcoin mixers, so being used to obfuscate the traces of Bitcoin transactions. An increasing adoption of altcoins being adapted to provide a higher degree of anonymity, such as currencies with inbuilt mixing capabilities or hidden public keys. A combination of Bitcoin and traditional payment mechanisms, such as debit and credit cards. The emergence of Bitcoin wallets providing increasing anonymity through inbuilt mixers. The emergence of peer-to-peer exchangers, completely missing the know your client laws or regulations. Criminal abuse of smart contracts, which I think one of my colleagues will speak more to that later. So in the end, is Bitcoin a gateway virtual currency? No, I disagree. Bitcoin is a way to spend fiat money. I grant that Bitcoin may facilitate the commission of certain offenses, but these offenses existed before Bitcoin technology, and they would continue to exist even if you remove Bitcoin from the equation. Hopefully, conferences like this one will introduce law enforcement and others to the technology, and hopefully it'll bring Bitcoin out of the shadows. So, thank you.